started, we just wanted to go over some things to keep in mind as we go through the session. So some house rules. So first thing is first, stay muted, please, just so that there isn't any like background noise. And the other thing is put questions in the chat. So if you have like any immediate questions, for example, just put it in the chat and someone will probably answer those. And the other thing is we will follow up with links to everything that we talk about. And if there's any like questions that could probably be answered on the website, you could also look at our site as well. So cool. So we're just gonna go through briefly over the agenda. So we're gonna be doing polls and asking you questions just to get to know more about you. The second thing is we're gonna do staff introductions, and then we will go over TCA or the Confined Arts' history. Then after that, we'll go over TCA structural overview, and then we'll do open positions. So what positions are open? And then finally, we'll do question and answer, so like a Q&A. So if there's any questions that are in the chat, you'll probably get answers to them from other different staff members if it's particular to a department or whatnot. So we're gonna do some questions, and we're gonna bring up a poll that y'all can answer, and I'll read off the questions. So the first question is, where are you located? So feel free to put in the chat, or not in the chat, but on the poll, where you're located. So at New York, somewhere in the US, outside of the US. We just want to know where you all are coming from.
If you guys are having trouble seeing the poll, just let us know.
Okay, so I see some responses. Oh, it looks like everyone's filling out the poll. So, but I'll just read out the question. So the second question is, which option best describes you? The third question is, what sector or fields most interest you? And then the fourth one is, what areas would you like to grow in while volunteering with TCA? So seems like we have a lot of people in New York. We have a lot of full-time professionals. Okay. The third one looks like a lot of people, okay, interested in the arts, education, criminal justice, some research, policy. Okay, cool. And then for the fourth one, seems like a lot of people want to learn art as political advocacy, as a political advocacy tool. Most of y'all want to see centering your own voice. All right, cool. Oh, I can also share the results. Oh, okay. I don't know if y'all can see the results. Let me know. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go into introductions. So hi, my name is Lisa, and I am the Assistant Director of Operations here at the Confined Arts, where I work directly with Pastor Isaac, who is the Executive Director. He will be talking soon. And so I just support him on the numerous projects that TC has both created and we're collaborating on. So I joined the Confined Arts back in May 2020, right when I finished my undergraduate degree at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I got my bachelor's in criminology, and I throughout my college career, I've been in various nonprofit organizations. I also work for another organization called Young Invincibles as an organizing and advocacy fellow, so that's also something I do. And I just want to say, since my experience here at the Confined Arts, I will say that I have learned or grown to be more comfortable in lending and using my voice to speak up for social change. Both my voice as in my physical voice, but also through different means such as media platforms or just through writing. And also something I wanted to know about the Confined Arts is that yes, we do strive and aim to bring societal and structural change, but we also challenge and rather push for change within ourselves. Because while we can change the external, but in order, like, we can change the external, but in order to keep that, like, we need to also change within ourselves, to actually be the change that we want to see and experience. So, as a lot of people say, it's like you can't serve the community unless you serve yourself. So that's something I always try to keep in mind, especially when I work with TCA. And that's something I've always appreciated about TCA and just the culture, which you all will learn more about. So now I'll pass it on to Leah for her introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Swalache. I'm the Arts and Strategic Engagement Director here at the Confined Arts. I've been with TCA for about a year now. I had the honor of working with Pastor Isaac through the Broadway Advocacy Coalition, which I also work for. And my background outside of TCA is I'm primarily a theater director. I started teaching theater in prisons and jails after my brother was incarcerated, and I spent a long time doing that. And I've just never left this work. I've now turned my attention more to direct advocacy and leveraging the arts for social change. Um, and to follow after Lisa of what I really appreciate about this organization and my time with it is that I have had the chance to challenge myself in ways that I didn't know I needed to be challenged, and I have been challenged by this group of collaborators, but not just challenged, but supported in those challenges. So I feel like I've never been presented with um, something that I haven't also been supported to work through. So I will pass it on to Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Lauren, and I'm the Director of Research and Social Impact at the Confined Arts. So I work to design, implement, and disseminate research to support TCA's advocacy efforts and to promote public discourse about issues relating to the criminal justice system. I started working at TCA as an undergrad at Columbia, where I studied sociology with a focus mainly on the intersections between mental health and incarceration. And I graduated from Columbia in May 2020. And now I work at a policing reform think tank called the Center for Policing Equity as a researcher full-time. And what I have really appreciated about my time at TCA is that I feel it has pushed me to think more creatively about how to present information and also design studies, because I think academia and art are often kept separate, especially in terms of thinking about research. But I feel like I've been thinking a lot more about the ways that arts and research can be integrated in order to convey both like the information, but also the emotional elements and like the weight of the topics we're exploring. I'll pass it on to Miranda.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm the Development Director here at TCA. And I work to ensure that all of the projects and all of the people who are involved in our work have the money that they need to really function. And I started working at TCA through Lauren, actually. We graduated together in sociology. And actually the first thing I was exposed to in knowing Lauren and her work at TCA was these accounts of the people who have become influenced by the different projects. So the specific project that Lauren was working on really showed me that there could be this marriage of arts advocacy, advocacy related to justice and those who are directly impacted. And then the final piece that I really came to understand in my role now is how that can be supported by different grants, by different organizations, and how really that is a major driving force to really support these efforts. So yeah, and I will pass it on to Rosette.
Hi everyone. Yes, my name is Rosette McLean Chapman, and I am a teaching artist. I've been a part of TCA since WPA, which is a Women Prison Association, and that was one of my first opportunities to do art advocacy. Rather new to me. I'm still learning to accept the terminology as an art advocate. But it's growing on me. And I'm a part of Lyrics for Change, which is speaking to participants or clients just about, I'm gonna say, I don't want to say stereotypes, but how art and how art and lyrics can combine to give you a certain state of mind or whatever, and how that can be effective, both negative and positive, and how we can, I guess, change that over time. So it's a good experience. I've been creating art as it relates to lyrics for change that I've never created before, and it's forcing me to grow in so many ways that I've never anticipated before. But it's a good growth. It's a good growth.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Rosette. I'm Abigail. I'm the co-director of communications and outreach at TCA. And I'm also in my first year as a student at Barnard studying political science. So the communications department plays a significant role in upholding TCA's mission through displaying and highlighting the social justice art, which works to change harmful narratives and shift the attitudes surrounding incarceration. So the communications department is responsible for sharing TCA's work and ensuring that its message is delivered by curating and distributing relevant content through the organization's social media accounts, email blasts, and websites. So a bit more about me. I actually interned for the Confined Arts when I was in high school, and then obviously chose to continue working with TCA in my college years. And working with TCA, especially at that age, was really transformative for me. It taught me a lot about prison advocacy and the importance of activism at the intersection of arts and justice. And so for this reason, I'm really passionate about recruiting particularly young people to work with the Confined Arts to not only glean the same lessons I did and still do working with TCA, but to make an actual impact on prison advocacy through art and art activism. And lastly, I'll pass it to Isaac.
Thank you all for those beautiful introductions. I'll take this opportunity to sort of introduce myself and introduce the Confined Arts a lot more, rooted in its background, and then sort of speak a little bit to how we work, and then I'll pass it on from there. In 2013, I came home myself from doing a 9-year prison sentence. And about 3 years into my bid, I learned how to color, paint, draw, and such. And during my prison sentence, arts became a means for me to not only financially provide for myself, but also it became a means for me to be able to psychologically deal with the harms and the degradation of incarceration. I came home with a bunch of art. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but I knew I wasn't going back to prison, and I knew that whatever I was going to do was going to be art related. So in 2014 is where the Confined Arts was founded, and it was founded as a series of exhibitions that featured the artworks of folks who were still incarcerated, folks who were formerly incarcerated, such as myself, and then also artists who had dedicated their work to the areas of an intersection of art and activism, especially particularly towards criminal justice reform. So those artists who, artists like Fury Young and Messiah Rasmussenson and Johnny Perez, and a lot of artist advocates who sort of were just lending their voices strongly, their poetry, their visual arts. In 2015, I became a justice and education scholar at Columbia University, excuse me. And when I got there, at that point is where we were able to take TCA from a series of exhibitions and really form it out and scale it and give it a foundation to where it could actually be sustainable, but also it could be a tool for other people coming behind me. Ideally, when I started the Confined Arts, I thought about it like a space for artists coming home from prison to be able to lend their voice, lend their artistry, and not be trapped into employment positions or opportunities that weren't advantageous to them. So that was the spirit of how TCA sort of made that transition. In 2018, we launched, and this was the year where I met Lauren. We launched our research project called From the Inside Out. This project is a very important one because it takes research and it shapes it into artistic messaging. And this was highly important because there's a huge disconnect between research that's produced at an academic level and people on the ground actually doing the work that people are researching about. So just me, myself, being somebody who's still in the hood, I'm at Columbia, I got this background, I have this understanding, I can see that disconnect. So I'm thinking, it's probably good if we, can do some research, but not just do the research. If we can unpack this research and the data we've gotten from it, the information we've gotten from it, and be able to distribute it to people on the ground in ways where it could be beneficial towards their program development, towards them getting money and such. However, it could be beneficial towards them and then not just remain at an academic level. So that's when we launched that project, and that's an ongoing project, and it's actually went from being a project to who we are in some ways, because every part of the work we do has a bit of research in it to make sure that we've done our homework in how we want to advocate artistically for whatever campaign it is. In 2020, so we're in 2021 now. So just to throw out a few numbers. So since 2014, we've engaged more than 50 students and research volunteers. A lot of this is because we're at the university, so a lot of it is that people volunteer for a semester or two. We do, at this stage, we are asking that people are able to dedicate at least 2 semesters volunteering, just because we don't, it's a lot if we get you into a project and you really get deep into it and then the semester's over and then we gotta like fill the space that you were in. So if folks are able to dedicate more than 1 semester, that's usually ideal. But artists, more than 100 directly impacted artists, I actually couldn't put a number on it. But we've engaged so many folks. And when I say directly impacted, and that number should well be probably much more higher than that, because directly impacted people would include those who are incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and like loved ones who are using their artistry to advocate. So that is the primary sort of constituency we have, is directly impacted artists. And we've to do our work, strategic partnership is key to who we are and how we work. So we've partnered with more than 50 partner collaborators. The work doesn't get done in silo, so we're very adamant about making sure that we create partnerships that are, effective, that will help us to execute our mission the most efficient way, and making sure that we're not trying to act like we can do it all on our own. We know that we're stronger together. So we really strive on partnering a lot. And I guess just on that token, I guess this is a good place for me to pass it to you, Leah. And you can talk a little bit more about that strategic partnering I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we go? Perfect. Okay. So I think others will also attest to different facets of the TCA culture, but I really want to focus briefly on our partnerships and spirit of collaboration. So one of the strengths of the Confined Arts is that I think we make so much happen with for lack of a better term, so little resources, right? We know that nonprofit work, particularly criminal justice reform work, is always underfunded, the spotlight is always not focused on this type of work. We've been actually, as much as I hate to say it, very fortunate this year to receive a lot of attention as a result of renewed awakening to a lot of the issues of criminal justice in this country. But TCA has historically been able to do so much as a result of these strategic partnerships. And what that looks like is bringing together people from lots of different corners of advocacy, of arts, of policy reform, to work on the same projects and to move forward quickly and powerfully. So I want to just spotlight kind of 2 examples there. The first is this coalition that Isaac will tell us a little bit more about when we get into the needs that we have right now. But over the past year, we've been forming a coalition with other organizations that work at the intersection of arts, public safety, and justice. And through this collaboration, we meet monthly, and we have been able to identify points of change, levers for change that we can collectively work towards. We've been able to galvanize support for each other and think about ways to strategically, collectively fund. So that's been an incredible way for not only for us to take action together, but to learn from each other, and for TCA to really build our own capacity by the relationships we form with others. The other example project is a project that we did this past spring called the Viral Monologues, where we teamed up with Broadway Advocacy Coalition. We teamed up with a strictly arts organization called the 24-Hour Plays. They don't typically consider themselves an advocacy organization, with a network of public defenders across the country, and with a bunch of artists who are currently incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, or their family members. And through all of these partnerships, we produced 12 videos that were released on Instagram and Twitter, and got hundreds of thousands of views, and shared the word about what the conditions inside prisons and jails under COVID were like in this country, galvanizing a bunch of conventional media support, all starting with just individuals coming together. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is the very grassroots nature of the way that we work, and the importance of collaboration and teamwork that we lean on in the Confined Arts. Did I cover what you needed me to, Isaac?
That was perfect.
Great.
Can we go to the next slide, please, Lily? And yeah, and this was the project that Leah was referencing. Okay. I think we can go. This was the project Leah was mentioning, the Viral Monologues project. Some other projects that we have ongoing and upcoming are the Lyrics for Change workshop, which Rosette mentioned earlier, and that's done with the Berklee School of Music. And what that workshop is really speaking to representational art. What does it mean to what is full participation and representation? You know, this is a huge part of TCA and how we operate, and ensuring that people are represented correctly and accurately. And we know that the arts is the means by which people are usually misrepresented, whether that be in media, whether that be in writing and description, or other forms of aesthetics that are meant to represent. So in this course, we talk specifically about representation and how we can be better artists as we and more intentional and conscious artists as we are moving forward in our artistry. Excuse me. Another project that I'm very excited about is the Open Call for Clemency project, which is an online exhibition. The site is up right now. The first exhibition is still up. opencallforclemency.com. Maybe someone could throw that in the chat. And you can check that out. It's up right now. But this features the works of people who are incarcerated right now across the U.S. and giving their testimony artistically for clemency. You know, using their visuals to sort of give testimony to why they clemency should be granted and why it should be granted speedily. You know, incarceration rates are high enough, but the cases of COVID inside of prisons are skyrocketing, and they're not going down. People are still in prison under very, you know, inhumane conditions, still double bunked, still living bed locker. It's still, you know, that hasn't changed. You know, they might have given folks masks, but folks are still in very much danger of, you know, catching and possibly dying from the virus. So it's highly important that we you know, I think it was very important that we focused a lot of our work on advocating for people who are incarcerated right now. And then also we have the Newark projects. We have a film project we're doing in Newark where we will be dealing specifically with like gender stereotypes and how those stereotypes add to sort of representation and community, and how those forms of representation actually put us in places that, you know, that disadvantaged communities in ways. I'll say it that way. And finally, we have our coalition. Oh, the other Newark Public Arts Project, excuse me, is a public arts piece we'll be doing out in Newark, but the thing to know about that is the process by which we are going to create this public art piece. It is full participatory. So we go out to Newark and we're working closely with Yendor right now. Yendor is a organization in Newark, New Jersey that focuses on, I want to say creative placemaking because it's an easy term to remember, but that term is a bit controversial, but that's a lot of the work that they do inside of Newark. And they're very much, community centered and community focused. So we're working with them to build a stronger network out in Newark and bring people, a lot of the Newark organizers together to really focus on a public arts piece that can be done inside of the West Ward of Newark. But specifically, we really want to galvanize a lot of organizations to start to pour in more resources towards the West Ward in Newark. So this project is not just that we will create something, but the process by which we go about creating it. And finally, the Coalition project, this is probably one of my favorite projects. Just as I've been just getting deeper and deeper into seeing the potential that we have. So the mission of the Coalition is to map, galvanize, and support arts organizations and programs focused on racial justice, restorative justice, transformative justice, and criminal justice reform. And so far we've and jump in if I'm missing this, Leah, but we've mapped by creating a directory of the arts organizations and artists doing this work in New York. And we haven't gotten everyone, so this mapping is still going on. Galvanizing, we've been bringing people together for the past 6 months, meeting, learning, building relationship with each other, and supporting. We've been able to, just within the networking portions of this coalition, two organizations were able to collaborate themselves and initiate a fundraising campaign where they were able to raise money. So we see the support that comes in networking and being in a network where we can scale our work together. So this is this is a huge blessing, I want to call it, this coalition, because it strengthens art and advocacy in New York. And also we stand with a coalition like this, we can stand together and have shared messaging. Nothing is better than having one message come from a group of people, Yeah, I think that's it. Did I miss anything on the coalition, on the projects, Leah? Anybody?
No, I think you nailed it.
Cool. We can go on to the open positions now.
Yeah, so each department will share their needs and what they're currently working on, and then you'll probably get a better sense of where you fit in after they share. So
Okay,
I'll
cool.
pass it on.
So I'll just keep going for a little bit. So I'll start with the arts and education and capacity building department. This is like probably our newest department, as we've been more engaged in curriculum development and workshops and workshopping, especially as it's been relating to how you have to organize via Zoom. Not that you have to organize that way, but we found it to be a lot more beneficial to organize and build capacity through our workshops and through artistic programming such as this. So some of the needs we have are like teaching artists and facilitators, people who are able to, administer art workshops, to directly impact the groups, people who are able to, who have gone through the sort of academic process and are able to sort of work with students, people who sort of workshop with us to build their capacity to keep doing the work. So specifically thinking about this with Berkeley. So we're doing this workshop with undergrads at Berkeley. We engage them for a semester long. We create a musical piece with them together over that time. What is the next steps with that? How do we continue to engage them? How do we continue to build their capacity as individual artists to be change agents? So these are areas where we have needs. That was an example of where we may have needs. There's also a need for a workshop curriculum within our coalition and just in different areas of the work we're doing. I feel like y'all will probably get that better just reading this. But did I miss anything, anybody? Should we proceed to the next one?
Sure.
Cool. And if there's any questions, again, throw them in the chat, and we'll have a Q&A at the end too.
Hi, so I'll start by summarizing the research projects that we're currently working on at TCA and try to weave in the skill sets that we are looking for, what we're hoping you'll cultivate if you want to support in the role. So we're currently focusing our research essentially on two main themes, which are trauma and dehumanization. So as Isaac mentioned, well, actually Isaac didn't mention this, but in May 2020, when we started, I guess a year after we started working together, for my senior thesis, I designed and conducted an interview study alongside other researchers at TCA to examine the social dynamics of relationships behind bars. So we ended up conducting 17 interviews with men and women who were incarcerated in New York State prisons and asked them about their relationships with their family, friends, other incarcerated people, and staff, and how these relationships impacted their transition home. So for my thesis, I looked into kind of the gender differences in relationships between incarcerated individuals, but there's still so much data to look through and so many different research questions we can ask. So I'm hoping to continue to do like thematic analysis on these interviews, particularly to explore like risk factors and protective factors to continued trauma behind bars and how these traumas persist upon returning home. So for that kind of thing, that would be more like the qualitative or like descriptive analysis things, which is my personal favorite type of research, because it's the one that I guess keeps the voices of the people you're studying within the research the most. The next large project we are working on examines how dehumanization tendencies differ across groups of people using this model that's from like Haslam. I don't know if anyone knows it, but you can talk to me if you care. Which essentially breaks down dehumanization into 4 like categories. And so we're currently planning on rerunning that study, but preliminary findings suggest that incarcerated people are uniquely dehumanized in a way that strips them of their humanity, even compared to other marginalized populations like homeless people. And so this is a kind of project that requires more like quantitative skills or like more like statistical analyses. So if you have like interest in learning that, I only learned like R in the last year, so there's lots of growth that can happen quickly there. That's that one. The next big bucket is kind of as a research team that's within an advocacy organization that's focused on mobilizing community change. We're also constantly thinking of ways to disseminate information to the public. So we're also looking for people interested in conducting literature reviews and creating visuals and easily digestible reports or like fact sheets for like community use. We also may want to think of topics to develop into presentations for like different audiences that we have. And this kind of role would be perfect for people who are interested in being creative about the output of research and ensuring that our work reaches beyond academic audiences. And this theme also relates to the research team role within the New York Public Arts Project, which Isaac talked about briefly, where essentially like we try to create and distribute surveys to get some more understanding of like community needs. Finally, we have a strong relationship with the law school that we are continuing to develop. So there may be research projects in the future that utilizes the expertise of law school students, but this work is like TBD. So that's my spiel, but feel free to ask questions following all of this, or email us or look at the research section of the website if you have any questions. You can go forward.
Wonderful. So onto the strategic arts engagement. So just a quick moment of clarification. You already heard about arts and education. Just want to draw a distinction between that and strategic arts engagement department. So arts education is working with individuals to create their own art, to build capacity of artists. Strategic arts engagement is really about arts advocacy. It's about taking specific policy goals, research findings, and translating those and communicating those using the arts. So some of the examples of what that might look like are we will work with advocacy organizations or with nonprofits who have a specific mission to communicate. Most recently, we worked with the Chicago Community Bond Fund, who is trying to get the Pretrial Fairness Act passed in Illinois. And in order to support and amplify their efforts, we worked with a team of artists to turn their policy asks into a set of 3 animated videos. This is also what we talked about earlier with the viral monologues or with Open Call for Clemency. So if you think about strategic arts engagement really as connecting existing policy goals or advocacy goals and using the arts as a tool to communicate those. So some of the needs we have right now are first and foremost curators. We have a lot of access to folks who work in performing arts, but particularly right now during the pandemic, we are in need of more folks who are confident in their visual art skills, because so much of the advocacy that we're doing is not in person, it's via social media, it's via film and video and posters and graphic design. We're looking for folks with expertise in the visual arts. So curators will take on responsibilities such as, with Open Call for Clemency, collecting artwork from currently or formerly incarcerated artists and then portraying it in a virtual show. Graphic designers and visual artists will support in making posters for, digital posters or ads for events and talks that we have coming up, as well as sometimes even making graphics to translate research findings. And then lastly, we're looking for arts advocacy campaign managers. So what that means is this campaign manager is the individual who's specifically responsible for thinking about both the advocacy goal and the arts strategy and merging those together. So for example, I just did this in this Chicago project that I mentioned with the Chicago Community Bond Fund. And my responsibility was to really be the liaison between the bond fund and the community of artists. So if you feel like you have your feet kind of in both worlds, then taking on the role of the manager of a specific arts advocacy campaign might be a fantastic spot for you. Next. Okay, great.
Great. So the communication department's needs are pretty straightforward because the communication department focuses on social media and websites to disseminate information. Most of the needs revolve around social media curation, graphic design, and scheduling. So the needs currently are for a graphic designer, someone who has experience using platforms like Canva, Photoshop, or Premiere Pro, a web designer to update and add to the Confined Arts website on platforms like Weebly and Wix, and an external communications coordinator to maintain and follow a social media posting schedule on platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and an email posting schedule on platforms like MailChimp. And we could go to the next slide.
Great. Isaac, you want to, or should I?
Yep, sorry. Oh, well, we can both do this one. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Cool.
So yeah, so again, this is another one that's pretty straightforward. I mentioned a lot about the coalition earlier. We are in need of a coalition coordinator, and that coalition coordinator would be specifically working with the coalition, the Arts Justice and Safety Coalition that we've created. And some of the things that we would need help with is scheduling coalition meetings, and a lot of managing the coalition correspondence. There'll be a lot of intergroup working and just facilitating. So one of the things we've done is we've broken up into 3 groups in the coalition as per our last meeting. One was a political advocacy group, one is about programming, and the other group is a fundraising group. So there will be like individual projects that each group will take on, but there needs to be communication and correspondence across groups within internally. So that's a lot of the work the coalition coordinator would do, especially note-taking during gatherings. Yes, support and response to questions of coalition members. The other need, partnership coordinator, this is a bit separate from the coalition coordinator, because every project that we do in some capacity, we partner and we are working with another organization. So with respectfully, partnership coordinator would be someone who is able to sort of identify strategic partnerships for us, who's able to reach out to people, who's able to sort of maintain, communication and relationship with potential partners and see if it's worth collaborating with, if it's not a good fit, if it's something, a referral thing or whatever that is, but really just working across different projects in a partnership building capacity. Did I leave anything out there, Leah?
Just one quick plug for the coalition coordinator. This is a role that we are hoping someone will commit to, as we said, for a long term, since we only meet once a month. But if you are looking to get to know others who are doing work at the intersection of arts and justice and safety, this is a phenomenal opportunity to do so. Our coalition is currently made up of 30 organizations and we're continuing to expand. So if that is of interest to you and you want to get to know the landscape, this is a fantastic chance. Pass to Miranda.
Hello again. So yeah, as I mentioned before, the development department is really about finding ways to support TCA. So it takes a familiarity with TCA's needs, TCA's current projects, and all of the people who are involved in TCA's work. So generally it looks like researching grants, applying to grants, being in communication with the other departments at TCA to understand how all those pieces fit in. I would say most grants we work on in terms of applying to, and then if we're lucky receiving them, do require the input of all the different departments, because there might be an aspect, we need this much money for materials for communication, that kind of thing. So pretty straightforward kind of grant writing things, and then pretty straightforward kind of understanding general budgeting needs and understanding, things like Excel, things like, not so fun, but needed technological programs like that. The area that excites me most is that there is a lot of space to be creative in this role. We have a lot of projects that actually came about because of grants, or came, only really had the space to come to fruition because of grants. We were able to receive grants that were specifically for working on things like the public arts project that we're doing in Newark. So if you have some ideas about places we might be able to go, and you might have an organization in mind that is actually looking to fund organizations like TCA, this is a perfect role to really tinker with those ideas, talk to the rest of the folks at TCA, and work within the development department to see if we can make that happen if we apply to a certain grant, and if we get that money. And yeah, I think that really wraps up most of everything. There's an exciting capacity to really be involved with every part of TCA in this department. So I just want to highlight that one more time, and we can move on to the next slide, I think.
So if anyone has any questions.
So I guess we're at the end of this. So I know we said a lot and we gave a lot of information, but if you have any questions, please take this time now to throw them in the chat, or just raise your hand, or just shout them out. We could talk now. No questions? Did we do that good?
I have a question. I'm happy to put it in the chat if that's easier, but I can also ask it here. Do volunteers tend to participate kind of in one lane? Do they end up crossing lanes eventually? Is it really about picking, like how much communication is there between teams, between projects, etc.?
I think one of you should answer that, because you got it.
Yeah. Anyone chime in if you want, but historically there's been more crossing over of lanes, and we are trying to get a little bit more of a clear sense of delineation right now. With that said, every department is pretty interdependent on each other, and all the departments meet weekly, or the heads of every department meets weekly. So there ends up being a lot of crossover, despite the fact that we're trying to make some responsibilities a bit more clear. So I suppose what's maybe most relevant for you is, if you're interested in multiple lanes, please let us know and express that type of interest. There may be some benefit to us having people who deliberately are trying to cross over or want to combine things. So we're flexible. I'll leave it that way.
Yeah, and just to add, I think especially because oftentimes on like certain projects, they're like kind of cross department roles. So like the newer public arts project is a good example where like almost every like I guess department has a stake in it in a different way. So like that's an area where there's like constant communication, like a lot of overlap. So it really like depends. Where like other research projects I described are like solely independent. So it kind of depends on like the project and your role, but we do communicate a lot with one another because we're still pretty small.
And I think to that, it's even good to, even if you're not sure, like I wanna volunteer, but not sure where I fit best. I think just talking to us about where you're at, what are some of your interests, what are you hoping to get from a volunteer position with TCA? I think that'll help us as well, because this for me, and I hope that it is for everyone, a stepping stone for people to be able to get experience and go and do more work and take like the spirit of how we work and sort of take it out. You know, there's a way that we work here that we really want to be sort of emulated in different places. And with that is that there's no pressure, even if you're not sure where you would want to start at, because there's a lot, and it may all sound interesting, you know, but we can help to sort of figure out where would be the best fit for you to get started. And that doesn't mean that you have to stay there. You can work on one project and you're like, nah, I don't really like that. I prefer to work on this, you know, so there's a lot of flexibility in that, but I think transparency would just be good. Yep. Okay, any other questions? No? All right. Feel free to email us. You'll have our email. I guess we could go to the next slide and close out if we don't have any questions. If you do, if anyone has one at the last minute, please jump in. But thank you again for joining with us today.
Yeah, thank you all so much for, taking the time, because I know like over Zoom it's kind of weird, especially now we're still in a pandemic. So we thank you for taking the time to listen to us and also just hear more about TCA, and also hear about the projects and let us go more in depth about our needs and what we're looking for. So just a couple of next action steps, if you will. To apply, we will put this in the chat. So here is the website to apply for any positions that you might be interested in applying to, or you might think you might be a good fit for. Applications are due Sunday, February 7th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So for those of y'all who are not in New York or in the East Coast, just make sure that your applications are in by then. Make sure, yeah. And then if you want more information, you could just always go on this website as well, theconfinedarts.org/open positions. If someone could put that in the chat, that would be great, please, for all these links. And then you have our email, as Isaac said. So to contact us is theconfinedarts@gmail.com. And just to give you a general sense of the timeline, we're planning to have interviews around February 15th. And we're hoping by the end of February that we will have decisions by then. And, just to be clear, just like really no pressure in these interviews. Like we really want to get to know you as a whole human being. And just also the experiences and the skills that you bring and even you want to cultivate through your time at the Confined Arts. And even if you don't get a position, for example, that you apply for, we are still grateful that you have applied, but also we also want to make sure that you're able to utilize the skill sets, your experiences, or things that you want to learn in other places that you might be a better fit. So even if you don't get the position, we might just refer you to another organization that might be a better fit for you, or where you can cultivate your experiences there, and support that organization as well. Because also, just to keep in mind, the arts and justice space is very small. So we work a lot with other organizations, and people will know each other from like different places. So just be mindful of that. So yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you everybody. We put, so those links are in the chat. again, echoing Lisa, thank you again for coming, and apply. I don't think that, yeah, you know, there's a process we have to go through just so that we can just be systematic about how we look through everything. But I think apply, even reach out if you just like, nah, I don't like this, but I want to do this. Like Lisa said, we would definitely want to refer people. We definitely want to just lead you to where you might want to be in this space, you know? So this is not just like us, you fulfilling our needs by volunteering, but this also being a platform for you. So even if it's a referral platform, we're here, you know? So just want to be transparent about that as well. But yes, thank you. I appreciate y'all. I won't keep anybody else any longer. Any questions again? Thank you, Omari. All right, cool.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.